Hello again, dear friends. Max here, as always. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to dive into this incredible chapter with me today, called Chapter 7.1, The Greatest History Never Told, the Tartarian Empire. This is a juggernaut of a chapter, and there is an unbelievable amount of information, videos, and pictures that I will show you here, so it will be quite a challenge to not screw this up, as usual, but I will try the best I can. Now, before we step into this, the usual housekeeping items here. Please find the Amazon page to the book. Please also find me on Rumble, where the podcast series is currently published, or on Brighteon, or on YouTube. All the likes and shares are highly appreciated. I thank you very much for that. Now, before we get into this, I want to emphasize something very important. That as incredible as this story sounds, there is some solid grounding and some solid information here. And let me tell you why. At the fall of the Soviet Empire, or the Soviet Union back in the day, there was a lot of documents released from the archives in Moscow by Big Bad Putin back in the day. And since 2017, there has been a plethora of information coming out on the intrawebs, internet, whatever you want to call it, regarding this topic. Now, that is because Putin had actually declassified all this documentation, maps and pictures and whatever, you name it. And people have started looking into this issue since, let's say, 2017, more or less. So all that I tell you now is pretty much true and accurate, but again, being state secrets, we would never know. And the biggest problem we have is that all of this is obviously written in Russian, has not been translated in full yet. So there's a lot more to come on this issue, and I'm really looking forward to it because, this is an important part of our history that has been completely hidden and taken away from us, okay? So let's get into it, shall we? Now, in this chapter, we're moving into a topic that I am very passionate about, and I'm very much looking forward to share it with all of you. It's a magical story. And as all really good stories, it also turns out to be absolutely true. I will explain some history and fact in these chapters that, if explained and conveyed properly, should change the way you perceive and look at the reality around you in a different way. Your life will never be the same. This is what happened to me, and now I'm giving it to you, free of charge. So here it goes. What if I told you that there once was an empire so large, vast, and powerful that it spanned all the corners of our realm at the same time? What if I also told you that this empire was exterminated together with all its inhabitants and erased from all maps and our history books? What if I went as far in my delusions to state that this probably happened between the 19th and 20th century? You would probably call the authorities and have me locked up in a padded cell and throw away the key, correct? Well, let me tell you a story and see how you feel on the other side. The Tartarian Empire absolutely existed. And there are plenty of documents confirming this fact, which I will show you now. The Khazarian mafia has managed to memory hole most of it, but there are many bits of information here and there that can be gathered to assemble some basic parts of the history, enough anyway to explain what we know today. I will now show you a few maps from ancient times, clearly indicating its center around Russia, and with Moscow as its likely capital, we assume. Some people say it's Rome, which is also very interesting. So here you see basically what is the Russian Empire, all called Grand Tartary. You have another map on your screen here mentioning Tartaria again. Let's move on. We have these old maps that mentions Russia and Europa and Tartaria. The black and white picture here shows the Black Sea, and Tartaria is mentioned just on top of it. Actually, this is an Italian map. It's the Stati della Piccola Tartaria, the states of the small Tartary. So who knows what that is exactly? We have another one here, Tartary, Tartaria. It also mentions Europe on one side, America on the other side. You have China on the bottom right corner. So it basically provides you the same information as the maps I showed you before. Tartary was indeed in Russia, at least most part of it anyway. Now, there are some and very, very few mentions in old books that we can go after. The one that impresses me the most, because I am a nerd after all, is the one I'm showing you here. What civilization has an alphabet of 202 letters? I read on the screen, alphabets of the world. In the various alphabets of the world, the number of letters varies from 12 to 202. The shortest alphabet is that of the Sandwich Islands, which has 12 letters. The Tartarian, the longest, containing 202 letters. So, who the hell were these guys, right? We have pictures like this. This is from a newspaper article from back in the day. Now, in the first one here on the left, they talk about some kind of concert or symphony happening. And they say, right here where the red lines are, 6 different languages: Russian, German, English, French, Tartarian, and Italian, comprising the most brilliant gems of popular operas. Okay, so Tartarian had a language. Good, check. We have on the left side of your screen the actual flag of Tartary. And this is written in Spanish, but it does mention, in the bottom there where it's highlighted in yellow, it mentions China. It mentions Persia, India, North and South. I couldn't say exactly what this means, but it's interesting nonetheless. Now here we have another interesting one. Here we have the flags of all nations. And as you can see in the center of the screen, there is a flag for Tartary. But here is where it gets really interesting. I will get into this small little video clip that I will show you now, with this guy that actually explains it to us in a good fashion and gives us a date. Okay, so let's listen to this.
One of the more common statements of the mainstream narrative when it comes to Tartarian. And before you ask about this guy here, this is what happens when you bring your dog on a golf cart. So I recommend not trying that, or they might headbutt you. So when you search for Tartary or Tartaria, you might get statements like this. Was a blanket term used in Western European literature and cartography. Or something straight out like this. Ignorance surrounding Tartary's use as a place name has spawned conspiracy theories. Well, let's take a look at that. So take a look at this printout from an encyclopedia. The flags of all nations, predominantly with America in the front. And let's take a little bit closer look at this. So you see America, China, Tartary. Pirates even have their own flag. That's pretty cool. Morocco, Mexico, Bolivia, Japan, Brazil over there. Now, how old is this exactly? Well, I counted out all the stars on that, and it is 34 stars, which, look to Google, January 1861 was when the flag had 34 stars. So not only was it not a blanket term, it was a complete nation. Right up till at least 1861. It was not European cartographers, and there are certainly no conspiracies here, just truths that need answers. And if you think it was just that one example, just look at this highly detailed map showing cities, land masses, Tartarian seas, even references in a news article talking about the Great Wall of Tartary, not the Great Wall of China. Like I said time and time again, inherited lands from fallen empires. An empire that was one of 6 major languages in which entertainers would perform their musicals on. I think the only conspiracy comes from the perpetrators of the word conspiracy, used to discredit anyone that doesn't conform with the mainstream narrative. Just look at the CIA document, says it itself. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
So, that's pretty interesting, right? I think the guy is correct. And the date of 1864 is, for me, extremely interesting, because that means that in 1864, this nation existed, it had a flag. And that means it had a government, it had a system, it has procedures, maybe a king. I don't know. It's been memory hold, remember? Now, we're not certain of its actual geographical extent, its leadership. Although it's been shown that they had a king and solid power structure, it's hard to say as all data is missing, right? Not easy to find something that does not exist, and academia denies completely. Now, some clues can be found in this little interesting clip I will show you now. Listen to the dates mentioned. They do tell a lot. Also, please note the incredible intricacy of the artifact that we're looking at here. The people who did this had knowledge.
And here's a fine coin from 1587, and really giving us a good and clear idea of how advanced the old world was. 1587, we see a cathedral, an amazing building, minted on a coin, all sorts of amazing antiquity. And how could it be? How could these people of the 1500s erect such glorious structures? Let's look at the other side of the coin. Look at this city. What is going on here in the 1500s? And these are the kinds of cities we're seeing depicted on the old map we are looking at. Absolutely splendid. This is a taste of the old world. And these crests found all around are the nations of the old world. And this is all we have here. This nation appears to have been associated with Tartarian. And down here, this one, we noticed on the older map by Ortelius earlier in the video, seemed to occupy many portions in what seemed to be South Africa.
Did you notice the backside of that coin? The skyline of that city? And let's not even mention the intricacy of what it means to stamp a coin like that with that level of detail in the 1500s. Are you kidding me? Who did this? Who are these people? So these are the small little fragments that make us think that there might have been a civilization walking this realm long, long before us that had knowledge that we can't even imagine, right? Now, we do have, however, some quite clear evidence of their existence. And how do we do that? Well, we look at their architecture. And the architecture that we see tell us a lot, especially regarding the expanse of this kingdom, okay? Remember the word expanse. To begin, let's look at the style of building and where they were located, described on the pictures that I'm going to show you here. You have Moscow, Russia. You have Penn Station in New York City. Moving on. Hold on. We have Istanbul, Turkey. Dayton, Ohio, in the US of A. This one is interesting. Sioux City, Utah. Look at that building. Does that look like anything that you would imagine to see in the US? We have New York City. This one is particularly interesting because here we see an arch, right? And in the back of that arch is the Flatiron Building in Manhattan. Very famous landmark. That was the first building ever constructed completely of steel beams. Just like the World Trade Center, by the way. And it was covered with concrete and bricks. But okay, that makes me happy because I'm a nerd, right? Moving on, New Jersey, USA. We have Cologne, Germany, the famous cathedral. This is Kharkiv, Ukraine. We have Milano, Italy. We have Manchester, UK. We have another picture here, somewhere in Spain, supposedly. Paris, France. Look at this. Look at the majesty of this building. It's absolutely sublime. We have Milan, Italy. Piazza del Duomo. This is the Dome Church in Milano, where they just happened to hang Mussolini right in front of this church, as we spoke in a previous chapter. Interesting place. Let's move more globally. Let's move more far away to the Bund, Shanghai, China. I've been there many times. It's absolutely spectacular. It looks like back home in Europe. We have the Raffles Hotel in Singapore, following the same type of architecture. Here on the left of your screen, you have Brazil. We have the Parliament in Hungary, New Zealand. We have Sri Lanka. And maybe one of my absolute favorites, on the left side of your screen, you have a building in Germany, and you have the exact same building and construction in Japan, on the other side of the planet. Isn't this intriguing? I know it is for me. We have this little gem. This is from Twitter back in the day. I read, take a guess where this is. Austria? Nope. How about 50 miles north of New York City? The ruins of Bannerman's Castle, an abandoned military surplus warehouse, still stands in the middle of the Hudson River. This looks like a European castle to me, doesn't it? Isn't that amazing? Here you have another collection of small pictures from all over the world. Pretoria, Algiers, Dakar, we're talking Africa here, Chicago, Osaka, Japan, Seoul, South Korea, Saigon, Vietnam, Winnipeg, Calcutta, Delhi, Karachi, Tehran, Santiago, Chile, Rio, Brazil, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Melbourne, Australia. We have Managua, San Jose, Havana, and Belgrade, Serbia. I could go on and on and on The point I'm making here is the striking similarity in these buildings, not only in architecture, but mainly in terms of their striking majesty and workmanship. I mean, look at these things. They are absolutely magnificent. Having all these constructions spread around the world in the way they are tells me two things. Number one, there was a civilization that existed a long time ago. They were master masons, and they were constructing buildings of their own architectural design as they saw fit. These buildings were all constructed by the same people. The design did not just come out of nowhere in a time when populations were not moving around. This was done, in my view, before colonization even started. Our history books, once again, are lying to us. Number two, the people who built these structures were highly advanced masons, and they put enormous efforts into constructing buildings that were not only practical, but also pleasing to the surroundings and to the eyes of the beholder. These were built by very confident people, people who did not worry about budgets or deadlines. It is obvious that they emphasized on aesthetic beauty first and foremost. Who does that? Who are these people? Now, there are more secrets to this that I will get into later. We will have to take it step by step, as this is a very complex discussion. I will, however, give you one example of the genius behind these constructions that I have verified for myself that is actually rather astonishing. We are talking about St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. I've been there a few times. It's one of the most magnificent structures in this realm. It's truly magnificent in every conceivable way. If you ever happen to go there, there's a small, nerdy again, trick that very few people know about that I will demonstrate here. As you can see, all around the square, there are lines of massive columns. 4 lines of them, in fact, one behind the other. There are 4 individual points that I mark to you on the little map here. You will see them below here, right here, with the red stars. And if you stand on it, you will only see the first column of each line 360 degrees around you. And beware, for you architects out there, or engineers, the square is not round, okay? It's oval in shape, as you can see on the picture. Now, I will show you a small little clip here that I found online about what happens when you go and stand on this little point. This is really fascinating. So here we go. Now, unfortunately, the guy, he didn't do the full 360 degrees around him, but I can assure you that if you stand on that point, you would have the same effect in your back, looking around you. Now, this is a level of precision and calculation and mathematics and architecture that we couldn't even replicate today, even if we tried. So I ask again, who were these people? Okay? If any of you believe that this work was done by hammers and chisels, you need to be institutionalized. Our fake books tells us that at a time when men were traveling by horse and buggy with no real knowledge and education and no power tools. By the way, the first power tool was invented by Bosch in Germany in 1952. And they somehow built this building here with just hammers and chisels. They carried all those stones from quarries far away on a buggy, carried them up 100 meters or more on cranes, which were hand-pulled, made extremely intricate stone carvings of a beauty that not even laser printers of today could do. And they did all of that with millimetric precision. Well, if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you. I don't buy it. Now please observe the devastating contrast in this picture that I show you here. This is the Cologne Cathedral. I've seen it myself. It's absolutely sublime. Now the historians are telling us that the poor folks standing there with bicycle, horses and carts somehow built this with their bare hands. Do you see where I'm getting to? I will here show you another representation of buildings of that age. Now this is something they probably built. This looks much closer to reality in my view. I could see them constructing shacks like this. I find it ludicrous to think that any of the history told is correct. Once you see it from this perspective, you cannot unsee. We did not build these structures with existing tech in the Dark Ages. There's no way on God's green earth. Okay? Let me make that very clear. You have to look at it from this perspective, okay? Remember who these people were. Now, Australia is the best case in point. To prove this point, I should say. We know from known history that the British colonized the land down under in 1788. The first inhabitants were prisoners, right? The scum that was so bad that they did not even want them in Britain, so they sent them as far away as possible. Now let's say what Wikipedia says on the matter, as I will show you here. I read, the colony of New South Wales was established with the arrival of the first fleet of 11 vessels under the command of Captain Arthur Phillip in January 1788. It consisted of more than 1,000 settlers, including 778 convicts, of which 192 women and 586 men. So, we know that the first settlers were convicts, and many more came later, of course. Undoubtedly, also many normal citizens relocated to this territory during the years. But the first ones to settle were indeed convicts. This historical fact and cannot be denied. So, our history books tell us that these convicts who had no skill in masonry, architecture, engineering, or quarry mining, in a few short years managed to build this. Yes, this was built supposedly by criminals who had no other skill than to steal. But somehow they put this stuff together. And this. Architectural majesty, if there ever was. We couldn't build this today, even if we tried, okay? Don't try to convince me otherwise. Now let me show you some more architectural majesty here. as we move on. Now, that is pretty remarkable, isn't it, after what I just told you? That these people here, without any experience or without any power tools, with just a hammer and a chisel, they somehow knocked out all this beauty and built it in record time. Right? Now, in order to emphasize the point even further, here's a clip from one of my favorite documentaries on the subject. It's made by a guy called Iwar Anon. That's not his real name, because he likes to be invisible, I suppose. Now, this documentary is over 6 hours long, but it's worth the time, though. I have included all of these links to these documentaries in the book, if you ever get to purchase it. I cannot show it here. I will only show you a few small clips. But this is going to be worth your time, I promise you. So here we go.
When the population is introduced into these photographs, that a new contrast emerges that is staggering. That is, between the people and the environment itself. It may be the reduced population numbers, or it may be the monochromatic starkness of the black and white images, but they present to us something that we've lived amongst our entire lives and never paid any mind to. That is, the enormity and impossibility of the architecture. As we engage with the industry and act of tourism, we journey from place to place and observe, taking it all in, learning, hearing, and being told what we are looking at and how it came to be. And standing in front of a structure like the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, we might even exclaim, "Wow, how did they do this?" But the moment, inextricably wrapped up in the busyness of the scene, perhaps prevents us from really asking that question with sincerity. Standing in front of a structure like the Arc de Triomphe, while the crowd frantically takes pictures on their smartphones, makes it all a reality. And we conclude, before being shoved away by new tourists, well, they had to have done it somehow because I'm here and looking at it. During our indoctrination at school, we are seldom shown old photographs of the grand cities scattered around our flat realm. And perhaps for good reason. Because when we marinate on images like this and are presented with the visual evidence of a very primitive Victorian people dotted around like grasshoppers within the shadows of the most magnificent, grandiose, brilliant architecture a human could ever imagine, we begin to have doubts. Indeed, how did they build this? The Arc de Triomphe is made from 36,695 cubic meters of limestone and weighs 95,407 tons, or just over 95 million kilograms. They tell us it took 12 years to build the giant arch in two different periods, between 1806 to 1814 and between 1832 to 1836. How did they transport this amount of limestone with the same horse and carts that we see in the photographs? Look closer at the four sculptures that adorn each of its sides. Look at the intricacy of the sculptures and the patterning of the ornamentation that frames the arch. Each section is perfectly repeated without any deviation or inconsistency. The first true power tool was not invented until 60 years after this arch was completed. They tell us this was crafted by hand. Is that even possible? And then there is the ceiling of the arch. Immaculate, 3D sculpted roses, perfect in their geometric symmetry. The nuance of the detail and finesse of each petal and cross-section borders is overwhelming. Look at the rest of Paris during this time. Again, a plethora of unbelievable, gigantic, and magnificent structures. The city's infrastructure glorious, and the people and their means of transport primitive, unsophisticated, and seeming not at all developed to the point of producing a city like this. The roads are improperly paved and uneven. They are dirty and muddy. We also see buildings during this period in which the architecture aligns with the inhabitants. Buildings of misshapen proportions, less developed and refined, charming in their own way, but coarse in their use of wood and plaster. This is exactly the type of architecture we expect of a generation of horse and cart, a generation ignorant to the discoveries in technology that would follow in the years to come. Furthermore, at the time of this photograph, the arch is roughly 40 years old since its completion. Yet can you see how worn some of the parts of the structure are? We see weathering on the stone that suggests the arch is much older. As we approach the late 19th century, we see that the people of Moscow have finally decided to leave their homes and venture out into the streets. The infamous Red Square, now bustling with life. St. Basil's Cathedral and the Spasskaya Tower dominate the frame of the square. The construction of St. Basil's Cathedral began in 1555 and was completed in 1561, a mere 6 years. It suffered a huge fire in 1737 and underwent restoration over a 20-year period. But look at it. What a structure. Almost unreal and like no other. It is composed of thousands of red bricks and tin sheet metal that has been shaped into the distinctive onion domes we see. Look closer at the intricacy of the domes. How did they bend metal to achieve such precision and perfection in the 18th century? And again, if they had the skills and dedication to build a wonder such as this, then why are the conditions of the roads so poor and covered in mud? We see these incredible structures and buildings everywhere in 19th century photography. We have the wondrous Crystal Palace of London, a monstrous structure with the greatest area of glass ever seen in a building, and all constructed before England had automatic glass manufacturing. We have Westminster Abbey and Parliament. We have the old Euston Arch, constructed out of pure sandstone in 1837, and streets unpaved and full of mud. Why did these people not prioritize the streets they walked upon? The Frauenkirche, the domed masterpiece of Dresden, Germany. Its intricate and opulent splendor in direct contrast with the beat-up wagons and horse-pulled carts of the people below, a people dependent on the bare necessities, a people completely dwarfed by its size and majesty. Library of Parliament in Ottawa, Canada, built over a period of 17 years. The first major settlers arrived in 1800, and at the time of construction, the city's population was under 20,000. Would a grand, glorious library really be a priority for settlers? Why does the building look like it's been cropped out of Europe and pasted into Canada? Even at the turn of the century, 40 years before Bosch economized the power tool, we have the old Penn Station in New York. Look at the size of this. Completely mind-blowing proportions. As we can see here in the photograph, each octagonal sculpted pattern on the arched dome ceiling is larger than one individual human. Look at the gigantic columns and detailed acanthus leaves decorating the tops of each pillar. They tell us this station took 6 years to build. 6 whole years. Yeah, right. Why are we so gullible? Even without access to modern power tools, printable construction pieces, and crane technology, we could not reproduce this today. And more importantly, we don't reproduce this type of architecture today.
So that's a good little introduction to the topic, don't you think? Yeah, I know, it's shocking when you see it at first. The same thing happened to me too. I know how you feel. Now let's go into talking about Founded versus found. Okay? I've spoken enough about the impossibility of these structures being built in the way they say. So, what happened? Well, they were found by the settlers. In Australia, they arrived to find entire cities already built with no people in them. In Europe, the same thing. In America as well. I will now show you pictures of how San Francisco looked like when the first settlers came on their horses and buggies from the west during the famous gold rush. There were supposedly around 17 to 20,000 people settling at that time. Am I supposed to think that they built all of this in just a few years while digging for gold, which supposedly was the higher priority? No, it was found. Check this out. This is a 360-degree panoramic view of the city of St. Petersburg, 1861. The next one is about Salt Lake City, found.
So you're supposed to believe that in 1847, a group of pioneers, 147 pioneers, just rolled on into Salt Lake City and in 20 years just started knocking out these buildings in like 2, 3 years maybe. Let's look at a building being deconstructed, okay, by hand, brick by brick, by people, using horse and buggy. This was not the same civilization that built those other buildings, period. And they expect us to believe they were putting up these buildings in like 3 years with this technology, with horses and buggies. This is a lie. This is supposed to be a construction photo. This is not new construction. It's all a lie. These buildings were here. Our civilization was reset, and the truth is being hid from us so that we can be controlled. Are you ready to believe that you've been lied to?
Now, hold on. There you go. Yeah, my screen was malfunctioning. Sorry for that. So that's all pretty interesting, isn't it? Because it kind of proves the point. There is something here that is not right. Now let's take a look at all these beautiful pictures. From the time that photography became a thing and started getting hold. This was in the turn of the century, 18 to 1900s. So all these pictures were taken back in the day. I know for a fact that the one on the left is St. Petersburg because I recognize it. We have this picture here. This is another one of St. Petersburg as well. And look at the muddy streets. St. Petersburg again. Here we have boats on the river, so there was obviously activity going on. Here we have again, I think St. Petersburg on the left, and we have San Francisco on the right. And these pictures were all taken in and around the same time period, gathered from all over the world, mainly Europe, Russia, and the USA. They all have a very important thing in common. Can you see it? Look a bit closer. Let's see if you can catch it. I'll tell you, there are no people in any of them. It's like as if the cameraman is the only one there. Mind you, these are very large cities, even for the time. So what are the chances of catching a moment in time when there's absolutely nobody around? Close to none, in my opinion. Something happened, something terrible, and we will discuss this in the next chapter. Now, to round this up, let me show you this other really interesting piece of information I found. This one says, how easy is it to falsify history by 1,000 years? The first picture says in Roman letters 890. The second picture has an M added to the number, means 1890. So, a nerd like me would ask, did they add 1,000 years to our history without telling us? And with everything I told you in this chapter, would that really sound so stupid and conspiratorial? I don't think it does. I mean, questions need to be asked. I have questions, many of them, which I will lay out to you during this podcast. Now we will move on to the next chapter, 7.2, which is called A World of Mud and Soil. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all for me today. I hope I opened some minds and got you to think in a different perspective. And that's all for me today. Max out, and peace to you all.